The purpose of this video is to help you understand some of the expectations, the writing expectations for your lab report. And in particular, we're going to go over what goes in the abstract, what we mean by clarity and precision of language, and then we'll spend a little bit of time distinguishing the conclusion from the abstract. First, the abstract. Your abstract should be written for someone who has not and may not ever read the full report. We should think of it as a report in miniature. So it should contain all the major sections that people expect to see. And in general, when you're given a technical report writing task, you want to organize things in terms of the IMRAD format. IMRAD stands for Introduction, Method, Results, and Discussion. In the introduction, so the first one or two sentences of your report should explain what the purpose is. You should say the purpose is to test the relationship between X, Y, and Z, or study the dependencies. Next, in a few sentences, you should talk about what you did, your methods. This should include what modeling you did, any simulations. You should name the equipment or types of tests or measurements that you ran. It should be very brief, but readers expect to see it. Then, the most important part of the abstract is the results and discussion. These results should match up with what you said the purpose was in the introduction. So if the introduction suggests a question, the results should answer that question. If the introduction says we're going to study the relationship between these things, the results should clearly explain what those relationships are. Moreover, you should talk about whether or not your results match your expectations, match theory, and if they differ from theory at all, explain why. This is how you show that you understand and how that your results are confirming what the expectations are. In contrast to the abstract, which is read first and is a summary of the entire report, the conclusion will focus more on the results and discussion, and we'll also talk about what you learned from this lab. This information should be more detailed than what appears in the abstract. You should really focus in this conclusion in showing that you understand the theory and can apply it to the results that you've obtained. There is some overlap and redundancy between these, so don't be concerned if you feel like you're repeating some of this information. The goal of a scientific report is to make it as easy as possible for readers to find the information that they are looking for. Your instructors, in addition, have suggested that you might want to use bulleted lists in the conclusion to make it easy for a reader to skim. The use of a concise but complete bulleted list is a common skill, a common format that you'll be expected to write in industry. Now to talk about clear and precise language. A big difference between novice or not quite engineers and more experienced engineers is the level of precision in their language. And this goes throughout. Whenever there's a way to phrase something more precisely to include a particular value, try to do so. Language such as even we evaluated several options when it's easy to name the number of options makes you sound less credible, makes you sound too casual. And certainly something like cost increased by a trivial amount. Using a word like that that's very vague and sounds almost dismissive is far less preferable than just saying how much it increased. Or if you don't have an exact value, say by under such an amount. And instead of something increases under certain temperatures, explain. Are we talking high temperatures or low temperatures here? Another big difference is that practicing engineers compared to students actually write shorter sentences, and engineers tend to limit themselves to one main idea per sentence. The reason is because if you include too many ideas in a sentence becomes unclear what the relationships are. It becomes likely that someone could misunderstand, and this could cause liability problems for a company if the language is too imprecise. So these are some examples of language from lab reports that should be revised. So in this first sentence, as the air velocity increases, the temperature of the cylinder decreases, and thus reduces the amount of heat transferred by radiation. Right there, that's a complete idea. When we get to this as well as increasing, I'm not sure what the writer's referring to. Are they referring to when the temperature of the cylinder decreases, it increases the amount of contribution by convection? I believe that's what they're saying. This should be a period here, and to try to really clearly explain what these relationships are. I am not 100% certain of what the writer is trying to say, and I'm not certain, it looks like they actually don't understand the concepts all the way, and that's why their language is unclear. So really simplifying your sentence structure so that there's no possibility of misinterpretation or no question of what you are saying the relationships are. This next sentence is also another example of the same thing. Sentence is fine up until as well as, and there are other problems then as well as, but oftentimes too many ideas get crammed in a sentence so that we can't understand what is impacting what. Simplify your sentences. Don't be afraid to write shorter sentences. It is much better to be choppy than to be inaccurate or unclear. We much prefer precise, simple, and clear than something that is ambiguous. Before you submit your reports, you should have one of your teammates read through and look specifically for places where the language could be more precise or where too many ideas are packed into a sentence and it's not clear what exactly the relationships are that you are trying to communicate.